to even start on the Browns. So a lot of work has been put in between the end of the game last night, traveling, and then and getting ready for next week. So got a pretty good handle on what happened, and a good handle on where we're going forward, and we're excited about the opportunity to move on and play the Browns and go find a way to play our best football on Sunday here at M&T in the home opener.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. Let's talk. Leadership is always key. No matter what endeavor you're on, whether you're at work and your supervisor is trying to lead and direct you, whether you are building a business and you have a business consultant who's trying to lead and direct you, or in sports, whether you're a coach at any level, Pop Warner, middle school, high school, college, or the NFL, the highest level. And when you begin to consider leadership for the Baltimore Ravens, it starts and ends with not EDC, but head coach John Harbaugh, a head coach that has taken a lot of heat from the fan base, and that heat is beginning to turn up more and more and more. And none more than me. I have definitely been a John Harbaugh targeter for some time. Not because I dislike the dude. He may be a great neighbor. He's probably a great community member. He's probably a guy who's great to fellowship with. But head coaching, I'm starting to have more and more doubts if the Ravens are in more trouble this season than I previously thought, just because of coaching. In the opening segment that I showed you of the press conference, or let's call it the opening clip, what John Harbaugh says is that, hey, we looked at the game from yesterday. We found out what went wrong. We're going to basically make some corrections. We looked at the Cleveland Browns, and basically that they have a plan to go forth. Okay? Now, that opening line from that press conference kind of sets the tempo and tone for week number 2. It says that, hey, right after the game, in transition back home, we were already in prep mode for the Cleveland Browns. Shout out to leadership. Okay? Way to be prepared. But it also said that, hey, he was looking back at the game to try and see what went wrong. And basically, if you listen to the entire press conference, what he ends up saying is that, hey, Josh Allen was just better than their 11 guys on defense. That Josh Allen was better than the plan that the Baltimore Ravens had put together. Josh Allen outplayed more than the Ravens were coached, from the head coach to the DC, to the linebacking coach, to the defensive line coach, to the edge rushing coach, to the secondary coach. That Josh Allen and the crew were able to outperform and execute them. That's basically what this press conference says, right? But we're not just going to stop with this opening clip and just kind of surmise that the Baltimore Ravens should be ready. We're not going to surmise that John Harbaugh is taking the reins and he's going to lead this team into week number 2 and get a victory at home against the Cleveland Browns. No. I want to hear more, right? You see, you guys know what I do for a living, and I don't really break down film or anything like that. What I do is break down people, right? My goal is to take apart people mentally and emotionally and help them put themselves back together. That's not what I'm really doing with John Harbaugh, but it's really what I'm trained to do. And so when I listen to John Harbaugh, guess what I hear? I hear a person who's in the role of a leader who does not have a plan. You see, because leadership a lot of times starts with the word my or I or me. See, because that's where culpability starts. See, if I'm leading a group and my group fail, I have to fall on that sword first. That's the nature of the phrase going down with the ship, speaking of the captain. And so Harbaugh never really goes down with the ship. Anytime he starts talking about the Ravens, it's never I need to do better. It's never I'm going to take responsibility for the guys not being ready. It's we. And that's a great concept, right? It's a team concept, the we, the us, the our. But leadership always starts with I, even if it's not spelled that way, right? But let's listen to this second clip and see if we can figure out what John Harbaugh is really saying. Let's take a listen.
What questions you have?
John, when you're looking at the defense kind of throughout the whole game, what do you think the biggest issue was? Because it seemed, repeatedly not being able to slow down Josh Allen at all.
Yeah, well, that was the biggest issue. I mean, we understand Josh Allen. We played him quite a few times. We had a little more success here at our place last year. The last two times there, not quite as much, but we had a plan, and we just didn't get it done. We weren't able to execute. We couldn't keep him in the pocket. That was a big part of the plan. Would be to keep him in the pocket. We weren't able to do that. That's probably the number one disappointment for me. I think when you let him extend plays like that, he'll run for yards, but he'll also find receivers downfield, and they do a good job of getting open. And it's just hard to extend that coverage long enough with his arm strength and accuracy on the move. So that's the number one thing.
Is it primarily on the edges to keep him in the pocket, or is it more complicated than that?
It's more complicated. I wish it just was. I mean, he escaped inside. He gets you going one way, and maybe we overreact. And I do think there's a way. We have to get better at it, and we can get better at it. And I do believe watching the tape, and just really just working on one thing. You get into a game. We haven't played a game yet. It's an opening game against a very good football team in a very hostile environment. There's a lot of emotions in that game there, and you don't know exactly where you're at because you haven't played a game yet with your guys, not a regular season game. And so there's a lot of things you learn. There's a lot of really good things that we learned about our team, a lot of things that I'm really happy about and excited about. And there's a lot of things that you learn that's like, oh, boy, we got to go to work on that. And I would say pass rush lanes, that's something that we've got to go to work on. It's not just 4 lanes. I mean, there's different patterns that we use, and we just weren't as good as we need to be at that.
Now, in this clip, it's just like I said. John Harbaugh basically says that Josh Allen was better than the plan. Josh Allen out-executed, outperformed better than what they had prepared. But then he goes on, he keeps talking. And I like to hear people talk because they let you know what they are really saying and thinking. He goes on to say, yeah, it was really hard to keep him in the pocket. And, he would step up and he's accurate on the move and we just couldn't contain him. Hold it. See, I could accept that because Josh Allen is a special player. He's big, strong, powerful, and he can run and throw it. Cannon for an arm. All of those good attributes, all of those things were a part of what earned him the MVP. Questionably, I might add, but the MVP of last season. But here's John Harbaugh's problem. This is why I say I like to listen to what people say. He says it's hard to keep him in the pocket, hard to contain. He broke containment, accurate on the move, that kind of thing. But hold it. Who do the Baltimore Ravens practice against every single day? Number 8, Lamar Jackson. The Baltimore Ravens don't need a practice squad quarterback to come in and simulate Josh Allen. The Baltimore Ravens have a real live Josh Allen type, more elusive, faster, quicker, more twitchy, and who is also accurate in the pocket and outside of the pocket. So I can't hear right now John Harbaugh, and I'm not going to hear, and I don't expect the fan base to hear that, hey, Josh Allen was just so good and he's hard to contain and he gets outside the pocket and there was nothing we can really do with him, right? Because it can't be a lack of preparation, can it? It can't be a lack of game planning, can it? Why? Because you practice against a better version of Josh Allen every single day and have done so with this group for the last season plus under Zach Orr. So I can't hear that. That's not an excuse. That's not an excuse. You're able to see it in real live practice action how you should be scheming against Josh Allen. It just sounds like it's a lack of preparation from top to the bottom. And it's bewildering at this point. It's bewildering to see the Baltimore Ravens seem to show up in games unprepared, confused, lacking communication, not knowing what's going on, not knowing assignments, not understanding the personnel that they're playing. To understand that Keon Coleman is not running by you, he's going to big body you. We didn't know that. To know that Shakir is not going to body you up, he's going to try and run by you. We didn't know that. To know that Kincaid can patrol the middle and make good plays across the middle. We didn't know that. To know that, you know what? This offensive line is really good. We need to scheme up some tricks to our trade to get some pressure. We didn't know that. But no, we just come to the press conference and say, oh, we figured it out. We figured out what went wrong. And then you come to the next question and you say, oh, yeah, Josh Allen, he's really good and he was breaking contain. When you practice against an upgraded version, no disrespect to Josh Allen, but you practice every day against an upgraded version. Now you guys tell me this makes sense. So I know some people have tried before to come and bring some some John Harbaugh apologetics to me. I don't want to hear it. I told you, the one thing that could not be a part of what causes us to stumble this season is coaching. And here we are hearing seemingly that we're unprepared, confused, don't know what we're doing, don't know our assignments, and it's ridiculous. And let me show you how ridiculous it is. Let's listen to this next clip.
Coach, it's just one game, but going back a couple of years, some of the fourth quarter leads that have evaporated. Is there a rhyme or reason for it? Because it's happened an awful lot.
Yeah, there is. I mean, I think that there's all those scenarios. If you look back at all those games, there's been a lot of, every game we've had, there's been a fourth quarter and there's been a scenario. There's been games where we've been in the Bills' shoes. There's been a new number of games where we've come back from 2 scores down and we've won. And how do you do that? How do you make that happen? There's been times where we've been 2 scores up and we've won. We've gotten the first down. We've done that. We've been 1 score down and we've popped a run, and gone down and kicked a field goal, whether it's in overtime or at the end of the game, or we've gotten a stop, that we had to get. And maybe part of it's the fact that we've been ahead a lot. We've won a lot of games, so we've had a lot of 2-score leads. So we've kept a lot of those, but I think we've lost 6 of them, if I'm not mistaken. That's too many. I don't care how many 2-score leads you have. And I do believe that we need to be really thoughtful of, how we decide that we're going to approach those situations going forward. Let's give it some thought. Let's give some thought to our play calling. Let's give some thought to our defensive play calling. Let's give some thought to our mindset, like how we're going to talk to one another. We're 2 scores up. We're trying to keep a lead against Josh Allen or any of these great quarterbacks in this league. What's our mindset on defense? How are we going to approach this? How are we going to talk to one another on the sideline? Try to find a way to get the win. It becomes kind of a situation, a game scenario that we need to be really intentional about going forward.
Yeah, when you listen to John Harbaugh talk, when the question is, what are you going to do to prevent, or what is the common theme in these double-digit losses? And he goes on this diatribe of just rambling about sometimes, we popped a run and got a first down, and sometimes we did this and got a field goal. That's not what the question was. He says, what's the common theme? He doesn't speak about a common theme at all. In fact, he goes on to say, which he probably shouldn't have, because it kind of highlights the failure. Oh, yeah, we've had 6 double-digit blown leads. That's a lot of games. You know how many wins that is? 6. When you have a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter, how many games should you win? All 6. But he kind of falls on that excuse, kind of like the seesaw. Well, we lost 6 games with double-digit leads, but at least we had them. So it's kind of like that up and down. It's kind of like playing with the reasoning. But no, we can't play with the reasoning. You had many double-digit leads, admittedly, but to lose 6, to lose more double-digit leads than anybody in almost 30 years, 35 years of NFL football, that's not a great stat. But this is the guy that the Ravens chose to extend and continue to employ. And it's the guy that we're probably going to be stuck with for the next 2 or 3 seasons. So hopefully what he said in the first segment, the first clip, hopefully he's right. Hopefully they do have a plan. Hopefully they are going to get it corrected. Hopefully they are going to be a great defense, which is what he said at some point in this video. But it's really frustrating to hear him just talk. I would rather him have an attitude like a diva, which we've seen before, than just say some words that really don't communicate anything clearly. We don't deserve that. We don't deserve understanding of where we're headed. We don't deserve, as a fan base, people who buy sports packages to watch the Baltimore Ravens, people who subscribe to different things to follow the Baltimore Ravens, people who pay good money to show up in the stadium to follow the Baltimore Ravens. We don't deserve to have some level of understanding about what's going on and why things really happen. To say, oh, well, we just couldn't contain it. Well, duh, we could watch that and see that. You said you watched film. You said you figured it out. Well, don't tell us what we could already figure out just by watching the game. And then he went on in another question, and he was asked the question about what's the mentality, what's the approach when you're up double digits. And this is what he said.
when you are in those situations and you have a double, a two possession lead in the second half, I just want to know, like, what is your philosophy in those moments? What is your philosophy when you're up 15 in the fourth? Is it protect? Is it still be aggressive? Just what is your message to the coaches?
Yeah, my philosophy always on offense is that the best way to burn the clock is to get first downs. That's the best way to burn time. So, you want to manage the clock, and you want to be smart about that. You don't be snapping the ball with 20 seconds on the play clock. And you do want to run as much time off between plays as you can whenever the clock's running. That's just good clock management. But you also don't want to do it sometimes in such a way as that it takes away your momentum or your ability to actually get the first down. Because once you start running the play clock down under 5 seconds, then the defense can tee off on you. I mean, they get a get off too because they can see the clock and they can see you have to snap it on the next hut. So that's the twofold part of it there. It's like I lean towards sometimes we'll give up a little bit of time. Let's have a play dialed up where we can have the best chance to get the first down, because when you get the first downs, like we did on the first and 10 play, when you get the first downs, that's when you can burn the most time. That's how you win the game.
What did he say? Nothing. Oh, the approach is to run time off the clock, basically, is what he said. That can't be your approach with a double-digit lead. Can it? Think about this. Can that be the approach when you got a double-digit lead, to get the time off the clock? That's why we lose. When we get up, we go into clock management mode without being able to manage the clock. The worst clock managing and game situation coach in the league right now, for my opinion, is John Harbaugh. So how can we go into clock management or time management mode when you don't have the capacity to show consistency in doing that? And what that translates to is lose mode. Because when you go into the mode of, well, let's just run the ball. Let's not throw it, because if the pass is incomplete, that stops the clock. That's the mentality. Let's go into safety mode, which means we're just going to press neutral. We're just going to put the car in neutral. We're not going to go, hopefully we don't go backwards, but we're not going forward. We're just going to press the gas and the engine's going to rev, but we ain't going nowhere, because that's what we looked like on Sunday. And that's what we've looked like in many, many games that we've lost. Those 6 games he referenced, that's what we look like. A car in neutral and somebody's in the driver's seat pressing the gas. A lot of noise, but it's not moving anywhere. And that's what he said. He literally said, oh, well, we just try to get the time off the clock. Well, what about we just go score again? Think about this, right? Think about this, guys. If we have a 2-score lead, no matter the numerics, if it's 14-0, if it's 28-14, if it's 35-21, or if it's 40-25, if we had a 2-score lead, then why wouldn't you just do what you did the whole game to get the 2-score lead? Wouldn't that make the most sense? Wouldn't it? I mean, I'm a smart dude, but I don't coach ball. So maybe what I'm saying don't make sense. You guys let me know in the comment section. Does it just make sense that whatever you did to get the 2-score lead, you just keep doing? You don't just put the car in neutral and just sit there? Crazy. Let's watch one last clip where he talks about Keaton Mitchell, and we'll close out right there.
Well, when did the decision to scratch Keaton Mitchell?
Numbers. You can't get everybody up, and you've got to make a decision about who's going to be up and who's going to be down. And the number of snaps you can get Keaton on offense are pretty limited. You're going to take Derek off the field. You're going to take Justice off the field to do it, and those are all going to be designer plays. That's what Keaton does right now. He runs the kind of the designer plays. So the defense is going to be like, what's he out here for? On the 4 or 5 plays that he's out there, it's going to be a specific play that they are kind of got to have their antenna up for. You got to balance it out, and then special teams. He does okay on special teams, but he'll tell you he needs to get better in that area to justify the spot. Otherwise, you're going light, in a couple other areas.
Right. When you hear him talk about Keaton Mitchell, the question, of course, is what was the decision to make him a healthy scratch? And John Harbaugh basically says there's no space for him. That's basically what he said. He says a numbers game, and he comes in on designer plays and all this other kind of foolishness. I get it. So if that's the real sentiment, that he's just a specialty back, then why keep him? What's the benefit of having Keaton Mitchell with that level of explosiveness on this offense if he's not going to be used? I mean, that's a real question. It was clear that he had made the decision way, way earlier in the preseason to keep 4 backs. Did you know it was a numbers game at that point? We didn't know that then. But now all of a sudden, you can't get an explosive player on the field? A guy who could run that end around that Zay Flowers was running? A guy who you can pitch it to in that fourth quarter, maybe? A guy you can throw it out of the backfield to in that fourth quarter? I don't know. I get what he's saying a little bit, that it is a numbers game and you got to put the people in place who can do certain things. And I did hear him say that, Keaton acknowledges that he needs to get better on special teams. But if he has all these deficits and these flaws and he's only a designer back, then why keep him? Oh, but here's an idea. If Patrick Ricard wasn't going to be ready game 1, and he's probably not going to be ready game 2, and if Patrick Ricard probably ain't going to be ready game 3, then why not just put him on IR and make room for another player, or at least you could play, Keaton Mitchell in place of somebody else. Same concept for Isaiah Likely, because he's not going to be ready until at least week 4, in my opinion. Some things just don't make sense. And it sounds like the Baltimore Ravens don't have a plan really to use Keaton Mitchell. Because here's the question. If Derrick Henry's available, Justice Hill's available, and Rashawn Ali is the return guy, and they're all available, there's never going to be a spot for Keaton Mitchell. So why not offer him up for trade then? He has some value to somebody somewhere, because he obviously doesn't have enough value for us. Just a thought. So listen, man, hope you appreciate the content, man. I'm going to be bringing you things like this every single week, just real conversation about ball. And stay tuned. This video will drop on Wednesday night. And I'll be back with you guys on Thursday unless something pops off in Ravens Nation. I'm your guy Boulanger, and I'm out.